Okay, here we are. Bob Ferguson here, along with Kellen Gracey. And I looked back and found that I hadn't sent an update to everyone since the 11th of July or something like that, which made me feel a little anxious because I really want to keep the energy in our Southeast Iowa community food web high. And yet there's a lot of background work that needs to be done. So today we're talking about that background work in the form of our needs assessment, which everyone agreed that before we did anything, we ought to assess what's needed, and then we can be more accurate in terms of how we put the different pieces together to build out the web. So Kellen has been working with his team assiduously on this, and we're going to be sending a beta version in this message. There'll be some written instructions, but I thought it would be fun to do a little video with Kellen and have him give us some background on how they came up with a survey and what we hope to get from this, from the beta version and from your participation. So go for it, Kellen.
Sure. Yeah. So the beta, the survey really starts, or the needs assessment here really has two components, and it starts with the survey, but there's also a qualitative component as well. Quantitative with the survey, qualitative in addition to the survey. And that's really just a fancy way of saying, we're going to do a survey, then we're also going to go out and talk to people face to face, right, and collect notes and do the boots on the pavement sort of work as well. But the whole purpose of this is really to put together the information we need to find the needs and opportunities that exist in our food system here in Southeast Iowa, and operate with the best information possible as we're trying to pull this food web project together. And so where this started was, we said we needed to find throughout our community where those needs and opportunities exist, and we have to figure out basically what kind of universe are we dealing with? What kind of environment are we dealing with status quo? And by that, I mean the players, the members of the food system. So we decided, well, we've got to figure out what types of folks we have, how many we have, and what their particular needs are. So we boiled it down to three different groups. So we have producers on one side, where you have people who grow, raise crops and livestock. Then you have on the other end, you have the consumer who's consuming the food, eating the food, cooking it in a restaurant, whatever it may be. And then in the middle, you have what we call market makers, value added organizations, distributors, warehousers, those sorts of things. And you can kind of think about those three main nodes as the major players in the food system. And so everybody's in one of those three categories. All of us are consumers at some point. We all shop for groceries, I would think. We all eat food in some way, shape, or form. But then depending on who you are, you might also have a value-added ag business. You might have some farmland or so on and so forth. So the very first thing the survey is going to do when you pop it open is ask you which of these categories you're in. In the live version of this, we're doing a beta version now. In the live version of this, when we go live across the 9-county or 7-county region.
Nine counties.
9-county region, right? When we go live across the 9-county region, it'll be a link with a URL, and the logic will be pre-programmed. So depending on how you answer that question is going to determine which questions you actually end up seeing. But in this beta version of the survey, we're not up and running on the URL yet. We're not live, so we're just gonna do this kind of analog for now.
Great. And so the more people fill this out, the more data we'll have, and Kellen will provide his email for any feedback you have. And so once they fill it out, they'll just email the survey back to you.
Yeah. Right now, when you open it up, you'll see there are check boxes you can click. There are answers. You can highlight what your answer is or indicate it with a bold, whatever it may be. It's kind of clunky since we're doing it in a Word doc, but yeah, when we get to the platform, when it's online, it'll be. But right now, honestly, Bob, I'm less interested in the answers I'm going to get right now than I am in the feedback on the survey itself. So what am I missing? What are other questions? Yeah, what are other questions that we need to be asking producers that we're not asking on this survey? What are other things that we need to know in order to move this project forward and to make sure that we're accomplishing the goals we set out to accomplish for all three categories, whether it be the producer, the market makers, or the consumers themselves? That's really what I'm interested in. So yeah, it's helpful to have some input starting, early, to get people to respond and tell me the answers to these questions. But ultimately, what I'm really looking forward here is feedback on the survey itself.
Okay, so and this is important for you to understand what it is we're asking them to do.
Hmm.
So the primary thing is to look over the survey and feedback to you. Well, gee, you should have asked this, or what about that? And then do you want just that, or do you want them to fill out the survey just for
Yeah,
fun?
fill it out. Yeah, fill it out just for fun. Primarily because that gives me something to play around with, right? Some numbers that I can go look at and summarize and say, hey, this is really weird. 90% are in this thing, right? Or whatever. We might have a baseline conversation starter that we can use to go different directions, and maybe even get some data that tells us what we're missing, right? Just how people fill this out might lead us in a new direction of, hey, why don't we ask about this, or this is really interesting finding, let's make sure to follow up with these other 3 questions that we need to make sure to get in there. So yeah, would like people to fill it out. Yeah.
Terrific. Okay, well, here is a very important next step coming over to you. So Kellen, thanks so much.
Oh, and just to make sure I mentioned it, yeah, the way to follow up, or the way to give me feedback, is just via email, which is just kellen@ravadaconsulting.com.
Okay, we'll put that in the written part. Okay, thank you, Kellen.